The federal government has become a lumbering giant. With each passing year, it gets bigger and scarier. In 1965, Washington was $761 billion big. In 2016, it was $3.5 trillion, 5 times the size. If the government spent only the money it collected in taxes, that would be one thing. But it always spends more, which is why we're $20 trillion in debt. That's 13 zeros. Count them, 13. But the crazy spending isn't even the worst of it. Washington is involved in every part of our lives. Think about anything you do, from driving your car to buying your groceries to mowing your lawn. Whatever it is, your education, your job, your health, the government has its hands on your shoulder, if not on your throat. As a congressman and senator for 14 years, I know this only too well. So how do we cut this giant down to size? Is it even possible? Yes. And the amazing thing is, the answer is right in front of us. The Founding Fathers in their wisdom foresaw the situation we find ourselves in today. They wrote into the Constitution a way to repair Washington, not from the inside, because that will never happen, but from the outside, where it might. It's right there in Article 5. Most people are familiar with the first part. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution. All 27 amendments we have now started this way. Congress proposed them, and at least 3/4 of the states ratified them. But is this the only way to amend the Constitution? Well, let's read the next clause. It says that Congress, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments. Did you catch that? Congress must call a convention to amend the Constitution if 2/3 of the states, that's 34 states, demand it. The time has come to demand it. The time has come to propose amendments that will restore meaningful limits on federal power and authority. The time has come for a convention of states. Here's how it would work. Once the 34 states call a convention, all 50 states send a delegate to represent their interest. For any constitutional amendments proposed, each state gets one vote. And an amendment only passes out of the convention and to the states for ratification if a majority of the state's delegates vote in the affirmative. In this scenario, Congress has no say. It is completely in the hands of the states, which means it's a whole lot closer to the hands of the people. We've never once amended the Constitution this way, but that doesn't mean we can't. But you might ask, doesn't this open the door to rewriting the entire Constitution? Antonin Scalia, the late Supreme Court Justice, acknowledged this risk, but regarded it as a minimal and reasonable one. Why? Because to be ratified, a proposed amendment would need the approval of 38 states. That's a high bar. 38 states would never agree to something radical like abolishing freedom of speech. The founders, Scalia said, knew the Congress would be unwilling to give attention to many issues the people are concerned with, particularly those involving restrictions on the federal government's own power. So they provided the Convention of States as a remedy. This should not be a partisan left-right, Democrat-Republican issue. This should be a who controls your life issue, you or the government. Today, politicians can turn your life upside down on a whim, kind of like King George in 1775. Being at the mercy of distant, disconnected rulers was why the American Revolution was fought in the first place. But we don't need a revolution. We have Article 5. So what amendments might a convention of states propose to limit Washington's power? Term limits for one, and no one should be in Congress for 20 or 30 years. The only people who disagree have been in Congress for 20 or 30 years. And how about a limit on taxes, spending, and borrowing? Since you began this video, the national debt has gone up $8.4 million. Here's one more idea. A constitutional amendment that Congress can't exempt itself from the laws it passes. Something it's done dozens of times, from insider trading to Obamacare. Now, I don't believe a convention of states will solve all of America's problems, but the founders put it in the Constitution for a reason. They knew a time would come when Washington would become so big and so intrusive that only we, the people, could cut it down to size. That time is now.
The time is now, folks. The time is now. Welcome again. Another Wednesday Night Live. Thank you for watching. Welcome Rumble, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And actually, I believe we might. No, we're not. Not yet. Coming up will be Twitter. We will be able to. We'll be able to stream to Twitter as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Today, I want to get into Mike Johnson. Who is this guy? You know, was this a win? Is he another rhino? What's his story? I definitely am not in the thinking he's a rhino camp. I'm going to explain why. Actually, the more I read about him, the more I really like him. And then I'm going to talk a little bit with you guys. I want to hear, and we'll do that right after I go over Mike Johnson. I want to hear, you know, when the convention gets called, what amendments are at the top of your list to get done and to get and not only proposed, but to get ratified, right? That's really the big stretch, is what can get ratified. Now, remember, when we get into it, and I'll remind you again when we do, we got to keep it within the constraints of this convention, right? So we got term limits, we got fiscal restraints. So really anything monetary that's restrictive, right? It has to be restrictive because that's in the language. And then the last one is government overreach of power. I think that's where most people would have the field day. But I have some that I have on my list that I want to go over. And as I do, I would like to hear what you have going over. So just a quick reminder, the majority of people who actually watch the videos for this page, channel, or wherever you're watching, the stats are the same across the board. The majority of viewers are not subscribed. So do me a favor, take a moment, click the follow button if you're on Facebook, subscribe if you're on YouTube, you know, et cetera, Rumble, et cetera, because I definitely definitely trying to grow the base, especially Rumble. I mean, Facebook, we've got almost 18,000, but Rumble is really the one that I want. And we get more viewers live on Rumble than some of the others because we don't deal with the shadow banning, or I don't deal with the shadow. I can always say we, like I got a mouse in my pocket. It's just me, folks. But that being said, I deal with the shadow banning stuff with YouTube, Facebook, etc. But I don't think that I deal with it on Rumble because live, you know, mid-show, we're always up to 15, 20 viewers. Whereas Facebook with 18,000 viewers, like by accident, I would get more views. So I know they're playing games, but I don't care. And I don't care if I have to talk to myself. The fact of the matter is Article 5 information has to get out, and it will get out. And I will not stop, you know, until we do start breaking some of these ceilings and some of these barriers to get this done. So, you know, talking about Mike Johnson a little bit. Now, you know, maybe some of you have already looked into this guy. Maybe you haven't. I'm not sure, you know, but me, I was out in West Virginia. My brother and I had bought some property there, and we were out there. It's raw land, so just a little hunting cabin. We're trying to get set up with some basic amenities like a bathroom and stuff like that, so that we can really start having some fun on the property. I took a dive down a hill, popped my ankle out. That was fun, but yeah. So I've been there handling that, and I haven't really taken the time to look into Mike Johnson until very recently. And when I did, I got to tell you, the more I see, the more I hear, the more that goes on, the more I like this guy. And I'll explain why in a moment. So the first reason, I'm going to make sure I got my clips in order here. So the first reason why I think I really love this guy should be obvious to anybody who watches this channel. And I'm going to play you a clip from him on the Louisiana floor talking about a topic that is, well, you might say near and dear to my heart. Let's hear him.
Listen, here's the important point about this, okay? An Article 5 convention is only allowed to propose amendments. the safeguard that the founders had the divine wisdom to put into the Constitution is that the ratification process is the safeguard. So let's say this hypothetical was true, which it is not, and there are libraries of information that have been written on this, libraries of constitutional scholarship that debunks some of the myths that are being presented here. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that Representative Carter was right, and that that it was a runaway, they came up with some crazy idea. They wanted to reinstitute slavery or something. You have to get 38 states to ratify that. It ain't never going to happen. The reason we only have this limited number of amendments, you know, there are hundreds of constitutional amendments that have been proposed in the last 239 years, hundreds of them. We only have a small handful that are in the document. You know why? Because the ratification process is the safeguard against that kind of madness. I have come to this conclusion myself after lots of study, prayer, and deliberation. This is what I do. I'm a constitutional lawyer. I was reluctant in the beginning, but I have come to the conclusion myself, for me, that the overreach of the federal government is so out of control, and it is exactly what the founders anticipated in the Federalist Papers, what they were concerned would happen, that this is the measure of last resort. And my friends, to me, we are at the last resort.
62 yeas and 36 nays, and the resolution's been adopted.
So, needless to say, right, you didn't have to see but more of the first sentence from him to know why he definitely got off to a good start with me. And more importantly, even than just his support of Article 5 and the people utilizing our constitutional power in a way that's productive and avoids violence and all of that. What's more important to me is the fact that he took the time. Now, you heard him say, even in that address, he was saying, you know, at first I was kind of against it, and he read his way into it, and that's all I'm asking of these state legislators, because once that, just like all of them, I say it over and over again, just like all of them, once they read into it, they flip. They say, you know what, this makes sense. I see why the founders did this. I'm in support. It's time we take our power back. I mean, for a nation that was designed for the states to really run the show, for a nation that really was, I mean, that's our entire, the reason we're not a democracy, okay, is because the states were designed to run the show, and it required the protections for majority, and that is what the constitutional republic was about, which is, by the way, going to get into another reason why I really like this man. So I looked into it, and I'm trying to hear some Republicans saying some positive stuff about the man. And I don't think I was shocked to not hear that much. Now, they weren't out there bashing him and saying negative stuff, but really, no, you know, just generic vanilla kind of stuff. And this is because there are probably 202 of them who absolutely wanted nothing to do with anyone but McCarthy, and those people need to go away, by the way, which is the overwhelming majority of Republicans in the House, who just really let us know who they are with their adamant backing of McCarthy. And the fact that we get an actual constitutional minded person in the Speaker of the House position and not hearing much about it bothers me. It bothers me as much as it bothers me that they were also pro McCarthy. Because they were pro-McCarthy, a lot of them, it's not that they particularly love him. They were pro-McCarthy because their concern was the way the House will operate, the way, what will we do in this interim, in this chaos, or this would make us look bad if we couldn't keep our speaker and we've removed our own speaker. It was all trivial garbage like that was getting them to make those decisions. And the one thing you didn't hear from any of them was, the people in my district say what the people in my district want, because that's what they're there for. And there's way too many people in the House who have completely forgotten what their role is. And they think that they're there for some national agenda. They're not. They're there to represent the people in their district. When all of those districts are properly represented, then and only then do decisions get made. But we're far from that. We've strayed far from that. And it's sad. It's sad that we've strayed so far, but, you know, hey, here we are. And Mike Johnson sounds like the kind of guy who's focused on his district and focused on the Constitution. So far, that was a major plus. But because the Republicans weren't talking much about him and really weren't, no raving endorsements of him, I said, I'm not getting a good feel for this guy listening to these rhinos talk. What's the left thinking? And so when I went to what the left was thinking, I did pull. So I pulled one video from generic news and another one from the real left, the Marxist left. And really, it's the Marxist left whose opinion about him I wanted to hear. And what I was hoping to hear is pretty much what I heard, was that they're horrified. Listen to this dude talk about how he feels about Mike Johnson becoming the speaker.
And it is not an exaggeration to say that this is the most radical and ideologically extreme Speaker of the House in modern political history. We knew that Mike Johnson was a MAGA extremist. We knew that he played up Joe Biden didn't really win in 2020 stuff, but it turns out that that is just a sliver of the totality of Mike Johnson's extremism. We only now have had the opportunity to do a deep dive into his career and his positions. It's been done, and it is utterly horrifying. Johnson is a 2020 election denier. We knew that. Close ties to Trump, truly MAGA's MAGA, I guess we could say. But on every issue, he's a radical. He called wind and solar power the most inefficient energy sources we have. Johnson also joined the Republican State Attorney General Jeff Landry and Christian evangelist Kirk Cameron, the TV guy, to argue under the First Amendment for student-led prayer and religion in schools.
All right. So, and he goes on to talk about he's anti-abortion. And I'm just sitting here like, check. I'm like, all right. So he's pro prayer in schools. So am I. I think that you don't have to, if you're not a person of faith, it's not going to hurt you. There's no harm being done to you to allow those who are of faith to pray. And it's always was a part of until they redefined church and state, etc. But I was like, that's a plus. And he said student run prayer. It was like horrifying to that guy. And then he says wind and solar are incredibly inefficient, and he's like shocked to hear that. Like that's so like his audience. I'm wondering if they're all going, huh? He said they're inefficient. Wind has got to be the single most inefficient energy source. I mean, unless you're in the middle of a hurricane, it is ridiculously inefficient. I mean, it's horrendously inefficient. Now, solar's getting better, but it ain't there yet. It's just not there yet. I have solar on my house. It's not there yet. It's not there yet. The fact that it cost, I mean, I didn't pay this all up front, but the system itself cost me like $350 a month for the panel. And that's a big system, right? That's a big system for that. And there still are months of the year where, it doesn't hold what I need. If I wanted to, and that's without batteries. So if I wanted to actually go off grid, I would need at least $20,000 to $30,000 in batteries to get me through, the night or cloudy days or whatever the situation may be. It is inefficient. So the dude is spot on. So that was the second point, is that the left is scared to death of this guy. And I love that. I love that. Anytime they're scared, you should be singing. So far he's an adamant cause supporter. So that's good, right? That's a huge check. And we've got everything that lefty listed off. And so all of which were good things, right? All of which were good things. The Marxists are horrified that he's the speaker. So something went right? Something went right. And I'll take it. Right now, the last piece is another near and dear to my heart, and it's really the same dude it's the same Marxist who's bashing him. But I love the lead-in that he uses, as if he makes it sound like Mike Johnson wants to start a theocracy in the United States, and And then he made a bunch of other bizarre accusations, but didn't try to back any up. This one, he actually tried to back up. And when I heard the actual response as opposed to what he was saying it is, I was like, well, wait a minute. That's freaking brilliant. This guy might be my favorite person in the house. Let me pull the video for you. And just now, for those of you who know how bothered I am, all right, I put out a video specifically on this topic of calling the United States a democracy. It drives me insane. Trump does it. Everybody does this. It drives me in freaking insane because it's a complete. No one in politics like there should be like in the pre-running to the primary. There should be an exam where you have to take, that basic civics are involved in to qualify you as a candidate for any office, But there isn't, and as a result, we get this. But here's what Mike Johnson believes about this being a democracy. First, you're going to hear the Duke Marxist relabel, because you know how the Marxists are, right? They hear what you say, process it, scramble it, turn it into something crazy, regurgitate it with the words. So what you're really saying is, and then proceed to like completely reinterpret what you said. Here's an excellent example of that right here.
He also, by the way, has said that democracy is not so good. What we need is biblical law, the epitome of tromping all over separation of church and state and Christian nationalism. Here is Mike Johnson from a few years ago.
We don't live in a democracy because a democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. Okay, it's not just majority rule. It's a constitutional republic. And the founders set that up because they followed the biblical admonition on what a civil society is supposed to look like. We don't live in a democracy.
There you go.
So there you go, right? He nailed it. He's like my hero right now. He gets it. At least I know that this guy has sound ground when it comes to what this country is, how it was founded, what the intentions were. Like when he turns around and says, makes the distinction that this is not a democracy, and the Marxist do in there, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that this is not a democracy. He doesn't know that democracy is bad. He doesn't know that. He literally doesn't know that. And then went on to just hang himself on his own channel to anyone who understands the Constitution and our current constitutional republic and this great system of government that is the American experiment in liberty. This man has no idea. So then goes out to make a complete fool of himself and then completely validate why I now will officially say I'm down with Mike Johnson. Now let's see what he does, right? We've seen good men go in before, right? We've seen good men, get some power and turn into junk, right? Turn into junk. How you doing, Bob? How are you, sir? Cos District Captain. There we go. Got my Cos folks joining on right now, coming on in force. Over on YouTube. Mern, how are you, Mern? I missed you too, Mern. I missed you too. It gets lonely out here. You should have heard me last week. I went absolutely crazy last week. I made a decision last week that, as much of the other topics that I've been doing, because they all kind of piss me off, and I usually just find, one that really gets under my skin, to come on and do for Wednesday Night Live. But I realize, and they always end up, right? I always end up towards the back half of the show, closing out, going crazy about Article 5, no matter what topic I do. But it occurred to me, the bottom line is I'm dealing with all this shadow banning. I'm dealing with all this, nonsense from these networks. And I am dependent on them for the time being, for viewership. And the entire point of doing this is that people hear it and see it and engage in conversation, or react to a video that I put out, those sort of things. And over the years, the last 2 years or so, 2.5 years, the videos that I put out a ton of stuff on the WEF, ton of stuff, letting people know about the Great Reset, trying to get people educated up on that. And it was all meaningful. But, in the end, everything I said a year and a half ago to 2 years ago still rings true. So it's, what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to have a throwback Thursday where I just repost because, Facebook has grown immensely. While I know YouTube I haven't even tried, but Rumble I have tried and not gotten the subscribership that I was hoping for. But we'll hope that'll change. I'll keep pecking away. I still got love for Rumble and the people on there. I definitely get a larger audience from Rumble in most cases than I do off the other channels. But I guess in the end, I decided I'm going to go back to the roots because really I'm going to lead these things in, with Article 5 and keep it fresh throughout. And for those that are new to the broadcast, if at any time, no matter what conversation or what topic is going on, at any time, if you have a question regarding Article 5, throw it in the comments. Throw it in the comments. If you have a concern, if there's something you read that scared you or made you think that it'll go rogue or whatever other propaganda, the George Soros groups, the Common Cause and League of Women Voters, and even JBS, like if there's anything that they all have the same narrative, whatever is coming at you from them that you heard that concerns you, hit me with it. And we'll talk about it, and I'll provide you with some good reading material, sources, things like that, to work with, because it's important. The key to doing this, and one of the biggest reasons why I think it's important. There are times where I'm getting shadow banned so bad that I almost just want to throw in the towel and be like, I ain't gonna do this anymore. But then I'm like, you know what? No, like I need to keep this going, because even if a broadcast only gets 2 to 3 people, maybe 5 people to pick up a book, maybe make the right clicks and go to the right sources and try and get some more information and learn and get that civics education that we were all denied as social studies was forced down our throats, and actually learn about how our government is designed to work and how it was intended to work and why we're struggling right now. Because when you learn how it was intended to work, you learn why we're struggling. You learn why things aren't going well. The states were designed to be sovereign and supreme in the land. And they went ahead in 1913 and gave up one of the biggest powers that the founders intended for them to have, was appointing senators. They gave that up with the 17th Amendment. So they now have no power to pull a senator out of the Senate when they go rogue. The Mitt Romneys of the world and the Liz Cheneys of the world, they get to stay in there. So for the people who are like, well, we should elect directly, really? Because tell that to people who thought Mitt Romney was one guy when he ran and then found out he was somebody completely different after he got elected, because those people had to sit there for a good 5 years and just watch him make an ass of himself. And Liz Cheney, different. She's no different, right? The founders had already accounted for that, and the states gave it back. Now the second power that the states have, that was a safeguard, they don't use, but they will use it because you guys are going to get active. You guys are going to get active. So here's my website, guys, right on the front page, right there, pow pow. Just click that link. It's going to take you straight to conventionestates.com. All right, to the link where you sign the petition. When you sign that petition, they're going to send a letter on your behalf, all right, to your local legislator, all right? And there are, once they send that letter, I would recommend to you to handwrite one as well, because everybody reads handwritten letters, right? I learned that from the cause grassroots, that it was a brilliant tactic, a brilliant idea. The legislators had all responded to it and said, yes, we all read, and we all read handwritten letters, because it was who doesn't read a handwritten letter, right? If you're at home and you take your mail and you see a letter written by hand and you open it up and the whole thing is written by hand, like, you're going to read that letter. You're going to be like, who took the time to because what it shows is that it mattered to you more, right? It mattered to you enough that you weren't going to just flip this off in an email. You weren't going to just, type up a letter. You were going to take the time to sit down and make it personal, because it is personal, right? So great tactic there, but they're going to send that letter off, and there's a volunteer button on there. Now here's where cause action really is is amazing in the network that they've created, right? This has been going on for 10 years, folks. So it's not like a new thing. All right. It's been going on for 10 years and it's picking up speed now because the world's on fire. And now people are realizing, like, holy smokes, like this is not good. Like, they realize the real danger that's ahead if we don't do this. So more and more people get involved, but every district, not every state, every district, all right, has a captain, right? They have a captain like Bob Dorbin, who just jumped on and said, "I'm a captain." Mern, I believe, is a captain as well. So and as that captain, when they see your volunteer come through, they're going to call you. It's going to be someone from your neighborhood, folks, right? It's not going to be some guy in a huge office building somewhere. It's going to be someone in your neighborhood who has the same things to deal with that you do, right? But what it does is it puts you, number one, puts you in touch with like-minded folks, and number two, it gets you in the loop on what's going on locally, because locally is where it matters. I know everyone's fired up about, Donald Trump 2024, some people DeSantis 20, whatever it is. Presidents aren't getting it done. Like, they don't have the power to do these things that we're trying to get done. And the things we're trying to get done are massive. The presidents can help with the border. They could do that because it's a federal thing, right? And the president does have, the laws are already there. So the president can affect the border. So getting a Trump or a DeSantis in will immediately impact that. It's just as important to get that done, right? But at the same time, this is change that changes the entire relationship between the federal government and the people. The entire nature of that relationship, as we have been duped to know it today, will change. Even if we don't get all because it's very possible they go in there and it's like, well, you got term limits, but the balanced budget amendment was tough to pass. I can't imagine it would be, but let's just say, right, there were too many states that want they don't want to give up their candy, right? They don't want to give up their juice that they're getting from the federal government. So they won't. Let's say that happens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if none of them get ratified. It would suck. But the point is, it'd still be a win because the process would have been completed and you could always call another one. And once the process is completed, all you need is an issue that 38 states agree on. Really 34 to get it called, but let's face it, 38, why call it if you can't get it ratified, right? So, but that's all you need. And I think, when you look at the statistics and they went and did a poll on the issues, right? Kept it neutral, not Republican, not Democrat, nothing like that. Went and did a poll, and the result of the poll was this. Now you look at the Democrats here, right? We know the Republicans are going to be in support. We know the independents are going to be in support. But the Democrats, because for people that want to make this a partisan issue, it's not 50.2% that support it. It's 74.4% that don't oppose it. Right? And if we're out there actively educating people, these are on the topics, right? Term limits to federal power, and fiscal restraints. Actual Democrats, not Marxists, right? Because I don't believe in Democrats. I say this on the broadcast all the time. I don't believe in Democrats and Republicans. There are Americans and there are Marxists. And the Kennedy Democrats, they fall on the American side. Marxists are Marxists. So by nature, they are anti-American. They are the antithesis of what this nation was built for. They would have the failure of this nation would have been long ago had we gone down that path, would have been insurmountable. Mern says over on YouTube, doing handwritten letter after 11/7 elections. Welcome new winner at the cause meeting for November. Nice. Yep. Handwritten letters. They did a group one out here in Cali back when, and I went and did that with them, and that was a lot of fun. And it's really empowering it's an empowering thing to do. You just feel like you're getting active. You feel like you're in there. You feel like, like, hey, I'm making a difference. And that's in California, right? Like, I know, like, you don't have to spell out to me what the situation is in California with respect to the legislatures and whatnot. I know it's a hot mess out here. New York's kind of the same. I get it, but it's still worth doing. It's still worth doing. And more so than anything else, even if you're in a state that already passed it, like Louisiana or Texas, or even if you're in one of these states, there's still work to be done. We still have to educate the population on what this even is, on what it even is. It is the single most empowering piece of the Constitution that exists. I mean, it's the ability to, it's unique, so unique that no country has ever, when they say all these empires always fall, no empire has ever had this power. None. They all fell trying to do some version of modern day Marxism. That's how they fell. They fell because everything was centralized. And so they fell. And this, we have an ability to completely avert that. And they know it, by the way. Don't think that the WEF, the globalists, the CCP, all the way up the chain to the CCP, don't think that they don't know this. They do. They do. There's no shortage of money spent by George Soros to send people down to floor debates on this and try and influence the vote. There's no shortage of money. Dude's been spending millions. Don't get it twisted. They know that this is the one thing that will not just subvert Marxism. It will kill it. It will kill it forever as a world stage event. It can't have. They could do the little countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Vietnam. They can do that, but they will never be able to penetrate by nature the United States of America, even with the education system and whatever they try to, which they've now lost. But even with those creepy tactics and underhanded stuff, they still can't. This will make it impenetrable. It matters. Mary Ellen, how are you? Been with Cause since 2014. Wow. Okay. For those that don't know, it started in 2013. So she's an early starter. And a little history on Cause, folks. Mark Meckler, the co-founder, was actually a founder of the original Tea Party movement. And to give you the reason why he went and did this, he tells the story quite frequently, actually, is that the people that because the Tea Party movement was a success. What they set out to do is exactly what they did. They primaried all these rhino Republicans and replaced them in the primaries with people that they wanted. And almost, not all, but almost all of them got elected. The problem with it was a couple of months in, they got hit with the machine, with the avalanche of bureaucracy. And 2 months later, we're unrecognizable. A few months anyway, we're unrecognizable. And it was then that the realization became that we cannot elect our way out of this, that there is no way to elect our way out of this, that the government was structurally broken, which is a very accurate assessment, and that if we're going to fix it, it's going to have to be us. Trump can't fix the government. He can't. He could end he can fight back. He can end some of the corruption. He could do some damage to deep state maybe, but he can't fix the brokenness of the government. Like anything that a president, and it's not just Trump, it's anyone. Anything a president comes in and tries to do is 4 years away from being completely undone. All right. If they do legislation, right, because a lot of Trump stuff was executive orders, which made it too easy to get rid of. But even if it's legislation, there's just ways around it, right? If the leader of the nation is not in dialed in, that's all you need is one president to come after him who's not fighting the way he's fighting, and it's a wrap. You'll revert back in minutes. But when it's in the Constitution, it's different. It's not legislation. It's the boundaries for legislation. Huge difference. And the fact that most of the power, if not all, that has been granted to the federal government above and beyond what the Constitution allows, you say, well, that's in violation of the 10th Amendment. Well, it is, unless the Supreme Court comes up with some bonkers interpretation. But true to the wisdom of the founders, The Supreme Court's not the final word. There is one way to overturn the Supreme Court without it doing it to itself, and that's a constitutional amendment. The progressives had no problem doing it. In 1913, they passed income tax, something they've been trying to get done for decades and was never allowed by the courts. Courts shot it down every single time. The only time it was allowed was during the Civil War for obvious reasons. If they didn't collect funds for the war, none of it would have mattered anyway. But as soon as the war ended, it was revoked. And the courts began upholding it again. It's the fact that it can't be in there. So they waited, they bided their time, and in the most embarrassing year from a constitution standpoint that this country may have ever seen, 1913, they went ahead and added an income tax, which, by the way, under fiscal restraints, we can overturn, we can repeal that and abolish income tax and make it so that income tax is no longer constitutional, which is how it was always intended to be. That's how it was always intended to be. But lo and behold, the states gave that back. Which, by the way, under the overreach subject matter in the amendments, the states can overturn. We can overturn the 17th Amendment as well. And to get into what I would like to see done, the top three on my list, all right, which are going to be three of the tougher ones to get, at least two of the three will be the tougher ones to get done, is those. It's overturning the 16th Amendment and overturning the 17th Amendment. So removing income tax as a method of power grab from the United States government no longer will, aside from the benefits to the average citizen and the abolishment of the IRA, the IRS, aside from that, all right, removing income tax removes a politician's ability to launder our money. How do they launder our money? Easy. Corporations donate to them. Everyone thinks it's the corporation initiating this. It's generally not. Most wealthy people, Donald Trump commented on this. If you're going to build in New York City, you have to pay. It's not an option. It's not like he was going to Hillary and saying, Hillary, hey, I could donate this to your campaign. Can you help me out here? That's not how it went. It was like, donate to Hillary so Hillary doesn't come back and make building your buildings an absolute nightmare. And then what do they do with this? How do they pay back these corporations? Well, they pay them back by writing in loopholes that they insult us as they get onto podiums and tell us time after time they're running on a platform that they're going to close those loopholes that they wrote to give back to their donors. And there's usually some sort of profit involved. So when you see things like General Electric not paying any taxes at all in a given year, that's why. That's why. And it's funny, Trump said as much on stage. I thought the brutal honesty was just brilliant, where Hillary tried to blast him for not paying taxes. And he was like, well, why would I pay taxes? Like, I said, it was all legal. You wrote the loopholes into law. You just didn't think to tell me about them. But what you don't know is I use the same accountants that they do. He's like, so I get the same advantage. And that's the way the system works. Now, is there ever an example of a company initiating it? Maybe. But how about this? How about we just banish the freaking income tax and end that crap right out the chute? You put in a consumption tax, everybody pays taxes. Everybody. Nobody rides for free. Everybody pays taxes. As it should be. Even if it's menial, even if it's small and and it's not even about the money. It's about the principle. It's about the it's about the pride in understanding that, okay, maybe I have to be on welfare right now, or maybe I have to, get government assistance at this point in my life because bad things have happened to me. But I contributed to this, right? It's kind of like unemployment benefits or Social Security. People now take back 10 times what they put into Social Security. People are living now to friggin' 85, 90. There's much more coming. That's why it's going bankrupt. And the fact is, it's not sustainable. But the reality of the matter is, you still go into it like, I paid into this. Like, I paid into this, so I deserve this money. That's not the way it is right now with our tax system. So there. So that's a big one. And then my last one is a single subject amendment. Those are the three, all right? And the third one, what I mean by a single subject amendment, all right, I mean similar to what Gates tried to get through the House that immediately McCarthy just ignored. But similar to that, except now it's in the Constitution and it affects the House, Senate. And that's anything that you're going to pass can only be on one subject, period. If you want to pass all those little things you want to tack on to the end of bills, yeah, you're going to have to come up with a separate bill requesting $200 million for lizards on a treadmill. Good luck. Good luck. Right? Or Rand Paul was bringing up the effects of cocaine on the sex habits of Japanese quail. Yeah, you want $200 million for that? You're going to have to put that on a bill, and Congress is going to have to go on record voting to appropriate money to that cause. It's a simple thing that fixes that problem. And that one will get ratified. Why? Because plenty of states already have that in play. Just like they already have term limits in play. I mean, I can go on with the types of amendments. I'm curious to know from you guys, what are the top on your list? Because that's something that those three were mine. And they change, right? Because, I debate because there's one that I want that I don't hear many people talking about regarding privacy. And when I say regarding privacy, I mean from technology. So even if they come out, even if all this AI stuff does come out and it wants to know more than you do and all this stuff, like, it'll be illegal. It'll just be illegal. You can't, and in it, you cannot make basic privileges that are necessary to live, like driving. And like, in other words, you can't say, oh, well, if you don't give us all your data, then you could do that. It's constitutionally protected, but now you can't drive. Like cut all that out, address all that in one shot and get it over with. You immediately shut down the entire dream set of the WEF right there. And it easily falls under the government overreach perspective. Easily. It's not a partisan issue. It's a matter of national principles. Absolutely. That is absolutely true. It is a matter of national principles. It is designed. The only thing that's gonna ratify through 38 states are things that virtually all humanity agree on. Which is why I don't understand how the hell they got to, like, what was going on in 1913. I have no idea. Well, I can't even fathom what the climate was like in 1913. I know Woodrow Wilson was single-handedly the most devastating president this country has ever seen when you look at the long-term effects of the damage that he had done. Because if you think he wasn't leading that charge, you're crazy. He was. But passing income tax, passing the 17th Amendment to strip power from the states, and then caps the whole year off on the day before Christmas, or the day before Christmas Eve, he signs the federal bank into existence. I mean, I don't know what the heck that was in the water that year, but like it's insanity. It's just insanity, and it needs to be corrected. We've got enough time now that we know just how damaging that all was. Let me look at some of these comments here. By the way, folks, all the shirts you see me wearing on here, there's a you can actually purchase them. I have a merchandise store that that is available. If you click the shop merchandise, there'll be another link, and it'll take you to my Etsy store where you can get Yuri is right, all that stuff. Once you see, you cannot unsee. It's got all the hashtags: BlackRock, Disney, Save Our Children, etc. So just a heads up. I don't really make much, if anything, off the shirts, but I hate to just ask for some sort of donation without giving you something of value. So those are available if you want to support the channel. Let me see what I got here in. So for those on Facebook, Mary Ellen's popping off some Convention of States links that you might find useful. They're a little hard for me to put up on the screen, but let me see what else we got here. So Mary Ellen in New York State. So it's at Rochester County. All right. So there we go with New York representing. The system corrupts them. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That avalanche hits them. That you could vote your own brother into office and know him to be just the nicest, kindest, and constitutionally aware individual that you've ever met, and give him 2 months, 3 months, you won't even know who he is. Christian Rodriguez over on Facebook. So true, it takes one term to undo the previous president. Yep. And that's, it's unfortunate that it's that way, but at the same time, it's a good thing that it's that way because, number one, like, you can't do what Trump did the first time. I know they were all against him. I get it. But, people, maybe you're not old enough. Some people, Tip O'Neill was not easy. That house was not easy that Reagan dealt with. But he was still able to get some stuff passed, right? Like even Clinton, gave in a little bit, got a little more. Like there's ways to get something through. like if it's all executive orders, you're going to be wiped out of the history books in a matter of minutes. So good comment there, Christian. Imagine Congress will have a temper tantrum if we were able to abolish the 16th and 17th Amendment. Yeah. What? The glee on my face. Just like I would want to see, there's some, I guess there's no debate. I'm probably the only one that doesn't want the convention itself to be televised, but most people, it probably will be because it's the first one and has to be. I think they pander to the cameras too much when things are televised. I'd rather take it out of the House, Senate, all of it. It's just too much grandstanding. I don't need to see YouTube videos of everything. But it'll probably be I can only imagine it'll be televised in today's world, especially because of the unique nature of it. And the benefit that will probably come of that is the educational experience for our youth, because our youth truly have no idea how this country is supposed to work. They truly have no idea. But in the end, I'd like if they're going to televise it, I'd want cameras in the rooms of like AOC and like those folks, and just so I can see their faces when it goes down, because they'll be panicking because they know it's going to pass. They know the states are going to ratify that one. That one, there are some people who argue, and there is some merit to it, that you should just do this on term limits, because it's almost surely going to get through. But like my attitude is, there's a lot of work, and amending the Constitution is not easy. If you're going to do it, if I have to wait an extra 2 years, an extra 3, whatever it was, if I had to wait a little bit longer, I'll wait to get it all. Because you got to go start this up again no, we got to go in once. Let's hit the home runs while we're there. That's my take. But We'll see. We will see. Top on the list should also be to eliminate the National Department of Education. Yeah, all of them, all the regulatory agencies, all of them, sweeping. Just none of you. If we can't find something in the Constitution that says you should exist because the federal government has power over that, then you're gone. That should be the barometer. Like, period. And that eliminates all of them. There are none of them left. The Department of Immigration would exist, I suppose. And that would be about it. Like this urban housing and development, gone, gone. OSHA, gone. EPA, gone. Department of Education, gone. I mean, there's a laundry list. And the amount of money that's saved doing that as well is just astro-freaking-nomical. So Dan Webb with a little criticism, I think, of me. I think January 6th are full of shit. Go Stormy. Go Stormy. But I do put the critiques up there too. Unless Dan, unless I'm reading you wrong. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe I'm not getting. Maybe you said that right after I said a particular thing, and I'm catching up now and taking it out of context. That does happen sometimes. When Social Security was created, many did not live long enough to ever collect. It's a real dilemma. Yeah, it's really not, though. There's a solution to Social Security. People just have to freaking man up, if you will, or woman up, whatever. It needs to be privatized, period. And it doesn't mean like you lock in the people who are about to collect, but effective immediately, youth who are starting in on the process need to be putting into accounts that are privatized. It's the way it should have been set up in the first place. It's the way it should have been set up from day one. Pay out the people. You get to that middle age group and you say, okay, you have an option. You can continue to pay and get it from the federal government, or we could take the money that you've put in so far and put that into a 401k style of investment. And when you're young, you put it in the risky stuff that grows quick. It also takes hits, but you don't care because you're young. And you play with it risky then. And as you get older, it gets more conservative. And then, when you think you've got good enough money, you protect it. If someone invests money into like an IRA now at the age of 20 and puts in a solid amount of money a month, less even than what would be deducted for Social Security today, they'll retire with millions. And it costs the federal taxpayer nothing, not a penny. But every time someone tries to speak that common sense, the ads start coming out, pushing grandma off a cliff. And I mean, my mom's the most devout conservative. She was freaking out when people were talking. What? Because it's just like the Don't Say Gay bill. They give it some scary name that doesn't exist anywhere in the legislation, is not even real. But then they pump that all over the media. The granny off the cliff bill, And everybody who's at or near Social Security age starts freaking out and sell us all out. No one has ever proposed ending Social Security for anyone. That's never been on the table without maybe ending the way it operates, but not ending it, period. And there's a way to do it in the private sector that's simple, and we just pretend that it's more difficult, and it's not. No omnibus spending, absolutely. And that's what that single subject amendment does, right? Same with funding for gain of function. Yeah, look, the government funds so much garbage. One of my favorite things that about the government and restricting its power and taking away all these responsibilities is when people tell me, oh well, we need regulatory agencies because there's just too much work to be done. It's like, no, there isn't. No, there isn't. Right? It's like if we knock it down to just the work the government's supposed to do, that the government really truly has the authority to do. If we just left them with those responsibilities, they could take the winter off or take the summer off. It wouldn't even be necessary. It's unbelievable to me how If you don't put it in, you shouldn't get any. Kids today don't start working at 26. I had my first job at 13. Me too, man. 13 I was. 13. I worked at Tony Roma's in Howard Beach, Queens, and I was a busboy. I was a year younger, really like 6 months younger than the limit. But they back in those days, they hire you all cash. If you really want to work, they hire you, they pay you all cash, and it is what it is. But yeah, 13, 14, that's when you should start working. That's when you should have a job, not a job to support yourself, a job to learn how to have a job. That's a concept that Marxists can't understand. The idea that they're even the fact that there are seniors who have retired and they've got enough money, they have enough money to live on, but they just want to work because for whatever their personal situation is, maybe the spouse passed away and they're lonely and they want to just get out and talk to people, or maybe they just, they're just that person who always needs to get out and work. And it's not about the money for them. It's just about getting out there and working and, being needed for something, right? I mean, there's that pride that people take in their work, and they work for all kinds of reasons. It's not always a situation of oh, I got to feed a family of four or a family of whatever. And then with those phrases, those freaking generic phrases, the two that kill me the most are fair share and living wage. Like, what does that even mean? What the hell is a living wage? Like, what constitutes living? Do you need an apartment? Do you need a house? How many bedrooms in that house? Do you need to have a car? Do you need to like what exactly is a living wage? Nobody knows what the hell that means, which is why they love that term. They love it because it means nothing. Literally. Paper. I was a paper boy too. You know what? I forgot. I actually was a paper boy younger than younger than 13, because I was living in my old house when I did that. My brother did it for a little bit, and then I picked it up for maybe a month or two of just getting the whole process, getting the papers. I did it on a bicycle though. I didn't have a moped. That's fancy. You're fancy. But that's a good one. But yeah, kids work, man. That's there's nothing wrong with that. It's a part of the education. They'll learn more flipping burgers at McDonald's at 14 years old when it comes to being responsible, being at work on time, how to work in a team, how to, what taxes are, what it's like to have taxes taken out of you. Like, there's more lessons going on at a McDonald's job at the age of 14 than there are in a freshman high school class, for sure. While high school is teaching you about completely irrelevant stuff like geometry. Like, yeah, if you want to be an architect, geometry is great to know. You know how many times people use geometry in everyday life? The average Joe? Almost never. Calculus, right? like who the hell needs to know calculus? Nobody. Except, again, maybe a physicist, maybe, specific jobs, right? But nobody else needs to know calculus. It's idiotic to teach it to everybody. And then when you get to a subject that everybody should learn, like civics or history, they distort one and remove the other. It's like, honestly, my daughter's in her senior year of high school, and I really could kill it if it wasn't just for the idea of having the diploma and whatnot. Like, just rawly from an educational standpoint, it is a complete waste of her time. It is a complete waste of her time. And it just baffles me. So I took calculus, but I was majoring in computer science. Yeah, I took calculus and I wasn't. I took calculus and I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I took it in high school. I still had no idea what I wanted to major in. And frankly, I went all the way through college. I ended up picking psychology as a major because I didn't know what to do. And I felt like, all right, well, this is okay. I mean, I guess there was no passion there. There was no like, man, I'm dying to be a psychologist. I can't wait. Matter of fact, I got halfway through my master's and was like, what the hell am I doing? I was like, what on earth am I doing? I was in my master's with like a 3.95 and decided to leave and I decided to leave in a friggin' financial aid office. I was about to sign another loan, and I was looking at the numbers on it. I'm just like, for the love of God, what am I doing? At the time, I was bartending and waiting tables and such, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to take some time off. I would like to learn the restaurant business. I actually would like to learn that. And I did. I left, got an opportunity for a dining room, took a huge pay cut than I was getting at the bar, but I took an opportunity as a dining room supervisor. And 4 years later, I was a general manager, very close to or at six figures, and doing great, and doing great. And like it, and yet I was still paying every month until the age of like 45 for my student loans, which truly, from life lesson standpoint, had almost nothing to offer. It's terrible. It's terrible. It drives me nuts that it's friggin' I don't know. I don't know. All right. Let's see what we got here in the way of comments. But I'll tell you one thing that really and it may work its way up my list actually is this privacy concern with tech. If you guys are, I know I've done videos in the past on the fourth industrial revolution, but and I don't hear Kazakhstan talking about it as much. I hear them talk about it as a subject, but not so much as, this is an amendment that they want to get through. But hey, I'm a free thinker. I come up with my own, but this is one that as time goes on, and I'm in the tech industry now, and I understand, the impact of this stuff, and I see these companies, gearing up and getting ready, and I don't think the American population is truly understanding exactly what's coming. And when it comes, it's going to come like a tidal wave. Like right now, just so you guys know, if you're not tech savvy and you don't understand fully what this fourth industrial revolution is going to look like, this is not like creating the steam engine and then it displaced certain workers who had to. This is not like that. This is like displacing everyone. It's wild, and the technology to do it. It's not like in development, might be around in 10 years, whatever. Most of the game changing stuff is already developed. It's literally at the starting line waiting for 5G coverage to be able to, like true 5G coverage, like ultra wideband coverage, to be the millimeter wave and whatnot, because that's where the speeds are. And there can't be any latency for a lot of this technology to work. But once that becomes prevalent and is like truly there's the bandwidth to hold this, and I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of edge computing and stuff, but in the end, like once this is fully built out and these connections can be made in real time the way that they're trying to do, the world is going to become a creepy place super fast. Super fast. There'll also be a lot of amazing innovations that come with it, right? But I don't tend to focus on the amazing stuff when there's this kind of creepiness that's lingering in the darkness. But in the end, it's going to be the most invasive technology, the most displacing technology. Like every bit of it, every single, there's going to be new stuff on top of that coming out every day, feeding on it. Like, and as AI gets stronger, like people, people think we've advanced so quickly in technology, from the time of the computer age. But the reality of the matter is, once the computer age began, the reason that things started developing exponentially quicker is because now we have computers. So it's like we make the computer better, faster, stronger. Well, now that it's better, faster, stronger, we can calculate things better, faster, and quicker. So now things start to move, and innovations start to become real. Bang, 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 bang. The planes start to become better. The cars become better. Everything becomes more advanced, and it just keeps exponentially growing to the point when now it's created AI, and now that AI is a thing. AI has the ability to learn, not to accept new data input, to on its own learn. at the speed of the best computer processors on the planet. It will be enhancing itself. Like it will be like the rapid pace of technology is just going to, like I said, continually get exponentially crazier. And we're going to be in a position where privacy is something that they're talking about as like, remember when people had privacy? Like that's what it's going to be. If we don't address it, that's what it's going to be like. Like people will look at it as something that it's just something you can't have in today's world unless we address it. I mean that's what we're looking at. Yeah, AI is scary. Well, you know what? It's scary and it's also awesome. Look, if the free market runs AI, and we have protections in the Constitution, like basic protections, doesn't mean no one will ever do something creepy. They will, but it'll be illegal and we can arrest them and we can, take action on it. But if the government controls AI, it's over. It's over. I could tell you without a doubt, if the government, what they're trying to set up right now in WEF is complete control over the fourth industrial revolution. That's what they're trying to set up. Because it's going to be disruptive anyway. Like I look at the young generations now a little bit differently than I did before. I look at them now and I'm like, they are up against some things that we were not. It's not just about pulling up your bootstraps and getting out there and hitting it. Now I understand that there's a lot of lazy ones out there too, a lot of them. But you got to understand when they're looking at their future, like virtually anything that they could think of that they want to do for a living is likely to be displaced by AI. The entire trucking industry will not exist in 5, maybe 6 years. It will be completely eradicated. There will be no truck drivers. The longest it would take is 10 years. But it's they've already got the trucks on the road logging millions of miles. Some hiccups, some problems, but they're working that out. And in the end, they've already got the gas stations designed to fill them up without somebody there. Like the entire industry is going to be decimated. Graphic art, done, gone. AI is going to be whipping up movies like Toy Story in a matter of 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Fully illustrated. Voices, everything. The world is going to change, and that's coming without the creepy people. It's coming without the creepy people. Trust me. If you're an advocate for minimum wage, if you think that really is, I've always been an advocate against the minimum wage for this reason. I always understood what it was. It was never about the employee, ever. It was always about it was always about pushing the ball down the road further to eliminate the employee, to make the employee unsalvageable, to set it up so that companies simply cannot afford employees. So that when the time comes, right, and we break that point where there's only so much you'll pay for a burger and only so much you'll pay, you just stop going. Well, good, because now the technology is here and we can eliminate those employees and it won't matter because there aren't many of them anyway. That was always that and removing manufacturing out of the United States. If anyone believed the narrative that the minimum wage ever at any point in American history was designed to do anything but those two things, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. And there are legitimate, constitutional conservatives who absolutely think, well, there has to be some sort of minimum wage. No, there doesn't. Because people will not work for less than what they agree to. So in the end, if you're offering $2 an hour, good luck with that. Let me know how that works. And you know what? Maybe you do. Maybe you find someone who really doesn't care about money, like I was explaining earlier, but they really wanted to do what you're offering. They really wanted to learn that skill that you're offering the job for. Maybe they do take the money. But the point is, if I walk up to you as an owner and say, I'm offering $2 an hour, and you say, that's all I need, and we spit and shake hands and we're good, You work and I pay you the $2 and we have a good relationship and all is well. Whose right is it to step in the middle of that and say, no, on behalf of this man, I'm going to make the decision for him? It's just, it's, no one puts it this way, but when you hear it this way, it should hit home. All right. So Bob says, I'd also like to see compulsory financial disclosure, all elected representatives. Sure. Yeah, I would like to see that as well. Right. And I'd like to see a ban on freaking communication between them and anything Wall Street. I'd like to see a ban on communication, outside of the chambers. They can communicate with them, on the floor. But like as far as these like dinners and stuff like that, end all that. End all that. I always feel like the minimum wage puts people out of work and reduces well, it does. Yeah, and that's the point. That's what I'm saying. Like, look, the minimum wage was created by Marxists, communists, whatever, however you want to, however you want to coin the term. That's who created it. Okay, and in the end, that's who supports it today. Only it's become just like calling the United States a democracy, right? And if you saw the video that I put out about that, that drove me insane, where I showed the examples of different people doing it, and even Trump was there talking about we're here to save our democracy, and I had the big X hit in there because it's the same way that they got people to start using that foul language when talking about our constitutional republic. It's the same way that they do this. It's the same way that they got people to eventually accept the minimum wage. And they got people who otherwise, had they understood the motive, would have been adamantly against it. But now they got those people sitting there going, no, you gotta have some, No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. I owned a restaurant for, I want to say 4 years. I went to it because a family member had opened one and they didn't really know, what they were doing, and they were older and didn't, and they needed to get bailed out. They needed to get, they were going to be in bad shape. So I left my job, went there, took it over, thought to myself, all right, it's failing right now, but you know what? If I get this working, we'll get it up, running, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Start making, if I can get it profitable, then, because the concept wasn't totally bad, but it was just in a horrific location and it was being run, pretty much illegally, like completely off the books. And we're not completely, but close to it. But like in that situation, minimum wage was $7 an hour. Now, this place was losing like $5,000 a month, but we changed the menu, we simplified it, made execution easier. We made some changes. We ran down the dry stock room, which freed up some cash. We did some things that you would need to know how to run a restaurant to do. And eventually, we brought in some higher quality product, et cetera. And we actually got the place profitable. Now it was making, I don't know, roughly 6,000 a month. So at its peak, it's only lunch business. There was no dinner there. At its peak, it was making about $80,000 a year. Okay. Now, at the same time, when I first took it, California decided to raise their minimum wage law. And what they did was every year, the wage would go up $1. Now, you think, well, it's just $1. And you think it's just for the people getting minimum wage. But that's not how it works out. How it works out is, number one, it's not $1, it's 20 grand a year. And I only had about 8 employees, maybe 10 employees tops. It's 20 grand a year. All right. So that comes, and it's not for anything. It's not like I'm not getting better performance for it. I'm not getting better people for it. I'm getting the same employee that I had. I just now have to arbitrarily pay an extra $1 an hour per head. But what do you think happens to the guy that I promoted to head cook who was already making $11 an hour? What do you think happens to him? Yeah. He's like, what is this? They're all getting raises and I don't get a raise? I'm doing all the extra work. I'm doing it. And he's right. He's absolutely right. And I can't explain to him that I don't have the money for this. So I pay him. I think he was making 10 when everyone else was making 7. And this was back like 2015. Or yeah, I think so, 14, 15. So Now he's making an extra dollar. They're all making an extra dollar, and I'm out 20 grand a year. Now the restaurant's making 60 grand. And this was going to continue until it got to $15 an hour. So the next year runs around. This is all cumulative because I'm still paying the extra dollar from last year. So now it's another 20 grand that comes out. And by the time we were heading into the fourth year, I was like, I have to sell the place. Now nobody's working. Now, no, like the place was maxed out. It was in a really hard location. We blasted with lunch business. I was able to add in some catering. I was able to do some stuff to try and get more revenue in. But there's a ceiling on a place like that for what it can make. I only have enough seating, to seat so many people. It was a small little corner spot. And like in the end, I can't once that's packed, once we're packed from 11 to 2, nobody's eating lunch at 3, right? There's no lunch rush at 3 o'clock. Really, there's no lunch rush after 1. So I've got like 2 or 3 hours a day to make all my money, which we were doing. But I'm losing this 20, and we were already there. Now I start losing 20 a year. Right? If I had hung on to it for the 5th year, it literally would have been $0 in profit. I literally would have made more money as a cashier than I did as the owner. Now, without the minimum wage, had that never changed, even with it at the rate that it was at, all right, at the $7, even with it, some people would have gotten raises organically. Some people wouldn't have. It would have been based on performance. But the moral of the story is I have to keeping them at $7 an hour while there were Chick-fil-A's out there already paying 10, 11. Now I'm hiring at 7. Why? Because I'm getting the people who have no experience in anything. And I'm relying on my ability to train them to make up for that difference. So both parties get a value, right? They get a job because no one will hire them now because it's $14, $15 an hour. You don't hire somebody who has no skills at that rate. So they don't even get a job today. But back then they got the job. They learned it's a skill, right? They learned how to operate a cashier. They learned how to expedite food at a restaurant. They made themselves viable for another job in the restaurant industry, right? But they also learned lessons like being to work on time and the basics, right? They got that out of it as well. And true to form, when they became good and my training was successful, they generally left me for Chick-fil-A or someone else who is paying more. And that's how I end up paying, is that now I have to spend the money to train another person. And the business takes a hit because I've lost a good employee. But I physically can't afford to pay them, so I have to let them go. And I essentially became a training ground for the local Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out and places like that have the capital and we're paying more. But that's how you got to do it. Like when you're small, that's how you have to do it. But nobody understands that, right? Because we're all economic mental midgets. So we keep cheering for the $15, never realizing how many less people work. Certainly never realizing that those less people working was the plan the whole time, right? So look, in the end, I'm not trying to do a constitutional amendment on the minimum wage. I am trying to get some legislation to abolish that, though. I think it's relevant, but there's too many bigger fish to fry right now than that. And there's not enough people actually working at minimum wage to make that, even an issue. But at the same time, these are the things, getting back to, oh, wait, you know what? I got a comment here on Rumble. Randall Krista, I hope you're still here. Prerequisite to serve in DC, I believe it's cut off a little bit. Let's see here. Oh yeah, prerequisite to serve in DC should be that you have to be a net giver through earning taxables. If you did add value to this country and not get, let me start this again because it's really small. A prerequisite to serve in DC should be that you have to be a net giver through earnings taxables. If you did add value to this country and not a net giver to the coffers, then you can represent. Right. That's not a bad way to look at it. So that's not a bad thing. I get what you're saying there. and it's, saying basically you can't be someone who's just, donating and donating. You got to be somebody productive, and that's correct. That's correct. Yep, we will all be replaced someday. We won't all be poor. We just look, things are going to be different. All right. We're going to have to think of new ways. Every time we look at the doom and gloom in the future, we figure out some way as humanity to overcome it. But right now, this is what makes Article 5 so significant, is that we have to give ourselves the basic protections to prepare. Right? We can't just walk into a world where jobs are scarce, issues are abound, and the federal government has full control of everything and knows everything and traces everything. We just cannot be in that position. Like we have to be able to, we have to have a fighting chance. And in order to do that, it's got to come, it has to come from the people. Period. Maybe as when they start rolling this stuff out, like I'm just tired of waiting for it to happen before anybody gives a shit, right? Like that's what's bothering me, is that it's like no one takes it serious until it affects them directly, and we cannot afford to wait for that. If we wait for that, it's too long. It's too late, and that's really the gist of it. If we wait for that, it's just we've waited too long. And making changes at that point become incredibly difficult. Whereas we can make them now. I mean, we got 19 states on board already. We need 14 more, or 15 more. And you can get them quickly. It's not like once it starts snowballing, right? Once everyone starts figuring it out, it doesn't take a ton of people to influence the state legislatures around this country. Not the vast majority of them anyway. 100 people in somebody's district show up. Dude, that person is sweating if he's not in line with what they're showing up for. And I can tell you that person will pick up and read whatever it is he needs to read, whether it's Nadelson's Laws of Article 5 or going to conventionofstates.com or watching this channel. They're going to start figuring it out. Because they're going to be like, dude, 100 people. When's the last time 100 people showed up to your local district office? There are some states in the union that have like 3,000 people in a district. You don't need millions. But if you take the time, right? You take the time to go to the website. It's not the store. Let me get back. These ads popping up. All right. You take the time. This is my website, thepatriotthinktank.com, right in front of you in big, bold letters. And I even have some blogs down here. I put together a few blogs. There's another one that includes Disney up here. But click this button and look where we are, right? Now, I can sign in because, I'm a member. But you pop in your information here, send email updates, which are cool because it keeps you abreast of when things are going on. During the hot season, when the legislatures are all meeting, I do a lot of material on this stuff. But you put in your street address, whether or not you're a veteran. And here's the big one, folks. Click in the yes, I would like to volunteer for cause. Okay. And then you say, how'd you hear about us? I ain't on this list. I'm not a big shot like the rest of these guys. You know what I mean? You got the Blaze, Bill O'Reilly. Personally, I think I'm better than those guys. But I'm not on that level yet. One day, maybe my site will get on that list. But the bottom line is, you don't need me to be on that list. You can go ahead and just hit other. Right? I'll be a write-in. We'll tell them, all right, guys, whenever you get another, it's only me out there, right? But you come in here, you fill out this information, send it off. That is the first major step to starting the educational process. That's it. That's the first step. Your district captain will reach out to you, and they will let you know from there, what's going on in your state, what specifically you can do. Do you have any skill sets? Maybe you edit videos. Maybe, I've done a few video edits. I did one for a veteran event that they were having over here in Cali. I ended up playing that video now every every year during Veterans Day and Memorial Day. So, like, there's something you can do to pitch in, right? Because with millions, I believe there's like 5 million now nationwide. In the end, when that becomes 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, now then it starts to become hard to go somewhere and not hear about it. And that's where we need to be. Because when we get to like 25 states, the gloves are going to come off. You're going to start seeing, John Birch Society on MSNBC every night bashing convention estates. You're going to see George Soros' son all over the freaking internet bashing convention. I mean, it's going to be on. They're going to be lighting the fire. Trust me when I tell you. They're not doing it now because they're hoping that everybody just stays dumb. They're hoping that everybody just stays ignorant. But trust me when I tell you, when they see the effect and they see these states jumping on board, they're going to be ramping it up, folks. And we're going to need as many people as we can. I believe that 2024 is going to be a big year for cause. I'm hoping we get at least 4 more states. Yep. I mean, honestly, like there was a lot. Yeah, 2023, I guess you'd have to say was a disappointment in the sense that, it was like close but no cigar in a few places. And then you had Kansas, who actually voted for it. And then we got this weird rule where, only for Article 5 resolutions, they need a supermajority. Like this stuff like that. It was just a weird year, but I'm focusing on like the way 2022 went, right? Where it was just like boom, 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 West Virginia, South Carolina, like boom, boom, boom. They just started popping on. And that can happen again. And in every one of those states, there were years that had gone by before they were so up for signing on. But what did they do? They signed on because they read, because they actually read, right? And that's something, And look, folks, if you hit cause on my website here, so not sure what happened to that, but I have to check that out. But there's a PragerU video for an introduction to convention estates. All right, they're throwing ads like in the middle of my page here, but some great reset stuff just to give you a background of what the threat is. And then here, states that have passed it, states with pending, states that have yet to initiate. Right, Uncle Sam's giving him the bird. But when you click through that, all right, you can actually see the text, and this hasn't been updated in a while because there hasn't been much changing in a while. But what you'll notice that's for real, it'll take you right to the resolutions, right? And you can read the text of the resolution and et cetera. And in the end, what you end up finding out when you read the text is that they're all the same. and that's kind of a big deal. Like here's one, right, for I don't even know what I clicked on right there, but it breaks down like what the 3 topics are. They're all the same for every state that's passed it. They're all the same for all the resolutions that are coming. They're all the same. The resolution names change from time to time. It's difficult to communicate on that level to figure out each individual chamber's changed in a given month. Every time I do, I update it though, but doesn't matter because the language is the same. So even though it may be an older link, the what you're hearing are term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach, right? So, and then I am starting to put the live streams up here now. So today's live stream is actually up here. You can watch it from there. You'll actually be watching it on YouTube if you do that. But, it is what it is. All right, folks. So I have gone past the 1.5 hour mark, which is a half an hour longer than I'm supposed to, but usually what I end up doing, because every time I talk Article 5, I get all fired up. So Kansas is in legislation. Mark Meckler told us he thinks it'll be resolved in our favor before the end of the year. I would love to see that happen. I know that they were saying that like the Attorney General of Kansas was in favor of the idea that that's unconstitutional to require something different only for something that's a part of the federal constitution. So I hope that they get ground there and that that comes through. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for that update. I did hear them say that, so I hope that there is truth to that. And then everyone has value and stake in this. Yes, they do, right? Everyone has value and stake in this movement. And the topics are not deniable. The topics are legit, and it's the way, it's the path. It's the path. The more you look at it, the more you look at the problems we have, right? Does the current convention solve every problem, that we have? No. We still got border issues. We need to figure this elections thing out, get a better system in place. There's things that we still need to get done. However, right? There's enough there. The three issues that it tackles gets a lot of it. Gets a lot of the major issues that we look at and say, man, it's just too far gone. 36 trillion in debt. That's just too far gone. How are we ever gonna come back from that? This is how we come back from that. This, and we're gonna it's gonna be a little bit of pain involved too. We got ourselves into this mess, and we're gonna have to get ourselves out. But the fact of the matter is, when the smoke clears and it's all done, the nation's going to be set up for 250 minimal more amazing years. And when it's done, I tell the grassroots this all the time. When you're at a cause event, make sure they get your best side in all the pictures, because your face is probably going to be in a textbook somewhere 200 years from now. And you don't want to be coming up. You don't want to be looking like, like Billy the Kid got that horrible photo taken of him, and that's the only one that people have. Well, you know what? It is what it is. All right, folks. Until next week, I appreciate all of you. Go and sign the petition. I'm out.
And like that,